hope you're ready to learn something today, because the gentleman that we are going to be reacting to is one of my favorite food YouTube channels. His name is Adam Ragusea. Every single one of his videos that I've seen, he is always teaching you something. Whether it's about food or ingredients or about the science of the ingredients in the food. It's fantastic, and he absolutely goes out of his way to do almost an absurd amount of research in his videos, but I know why he does it. I mean, it's one of those things. If he doesn't do an absurd amount of research, there's going to be one commenter that will say one tiny thing that he didn't mention in his video, and I know how much that can bug somebody. So he does a ton of research, and I always learn something whenever I watch his videos. If you haven't heard of Adam Ragusea's channel, go check it out. He's got tons of cooking videos, tons of ingredient videos, tons of great recipes, and his food always looks great. And like I said, I always learn something. So another little caveat is anytime I have an idea of a video to do, a lot of times I go and look at his channel to see if he's already done it, because anytime I want to do something about food science or food related, like extreme detail things, I always want to check his channel, because chances are he probably already did it. In the video that we're going to be reacting to, I actually wanted to do this video like this week. So he beat me to it. I mean, he literally, he just posted this a few days ago and it showed up on my feed and I'm like, you son of a gun. Let's just react to it and let's learn something together. This is Adam Ragusea. Meat juice is not blood, and the difference matters. Yes, I would say if there's a subject where the difference matters, meat juice and blood is definitely one of them. So let's go react to Adam Ragusea.
Hey, heads up. This video features some very mild shots of a very small amount of human blood.
All right.
If that's going to make you pass out or something, maybe stop operating heavy machinery now, or, watch something else.
Same warning goes for this video,
Contrary to
I
what
guess.
people say, this is not blood. This is not blood. This is not blood, and this is not blood.
Good
there,
mistake.
that's blood. Viscous and fire engine red. People may call this a bloody steak, and while there is probably some trace amount of blood in all meat, that's not what you're looking at here. What you're looking at here is meat juice.
Meat juice is delicious, and you should not be afraid of it. If it's not there, you should be upset. Not if it is there, okay?
Which goes by a number of more technical or scientific names that we will examine. More importantly, I'm here to try to persuade you that the difference between blood and meat juice is meaningful. This is not just some little bit of idle semantic quibbling from a pedant, though that's obviously the kind of thing that I would do. No, the difference between blood and juice is really big.
He has a podcast too, like a video podcast, and I've watched a couple episodes. They're a little on the longer side more than his videos, as they should be. But he covers a ton of topics and goes into so much detail. So if you like this kind of video, you have to check out his podcast too.
Big, both culinarily and culturally. When animals are slaughtered for meat, their major arteries are cut and they are hung so that gravity pulls out nearly every drop of blood. The circulatory...
If that blood stayed in there and you ate that meat, weeks later, we'd be talking about a whole different list of issues, okay?
System is fluid by design. Stuff flows easily through it and it goes out onto the abattoir floor. At least that's if you do it right. If the animal is really scared or otherwise excited right before slaughter, then the smaller blood vessels might contract a little bit and trap a little bit of blood inside the meat, resulting in what is known as fiery carcass in the meat industry. Google image search fiery carcass at your own risk.
Yeah,
but there should be hardly any blood left in here. That liquid is known in the industry as purge or weep or drip. Meat is like 3/4 water, and some of it is gonna gradually leak out as the vacuum packaging accumulates and retains every drop. Purge is meat water.
That's why there's usually the diaper in there with all of your chicken or your steaks or anything like that you buy from the grocery store. They use that diaper to absorb some of that purge.
With a number of proteins and dissolved solids in it. We'll get back to that. There is some blood in this chicken, and let's see if we can find it. There, when I sliced into that bone, blood cells are made in the bone marrow, which you would know if you've ever broken a raw wishbone or something before. Technically,
have you ever seen the episode of The Office where Dwight got to do his German Christmas traditions and he broke the giant pig rib? And the blood went all over Phyllis's face. Yeah, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and Google that, and you'll see exactly what he's talking about.
That's not blood inside the bones, it's just blood cells. It's missing the number one component of whole, true blood, which is, of course, plasma, the watery portion of blood. Let's keep looking for that real blood. Hey, there's a couple of streaks of blood there under the breast, a couple of vessels or nerves or something. Here's some kind of vessel near the wing joint.
Usually
that looks like blood to me.
Yep.
Lots of tiny little spots of blood that get trapped and couldn't make it out when the chicken was bled. And there's probably microscopic quantities of blood still clinging inside the capillaries and other teeny tiny vessels that we can't even see. Regardless, we can see that blood is just very different from the protein-laden water that comes out of meat. Saying they're the same is like saying that, coffee and tea are the same. I mean, they're very similar, but just fundamentally different. As is the delicious coffee that I get from Trade Coffee, sponsor of this video. Get a free...
Funny enough, I use Trade all the time. So I've used Trade. Now, they are not a sponsor of my channel, although they could be if they wanted to. I really love it. You get a different bag from a different roaster every single week or every 2 weeks, however you want to set it up. And they're usually U.S. roasters. And dang, the coffee is good. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. We're going to skip past his ad. But hey, I landed right on his tag. Feel free to use his tag. Oh, Alma, I've had that exact one. That's funny. Oh boy, we're still advertising. Okay. Oh, we're still going. And we're still going. Okay, and that's a nice long ad there. Okay, we're back to it right there.
Anyway, let's talk about why blood and meat juice are just different things, both taste-wise and functionally. We're going to need some real blood to examine, and because carcasses are bled so effectively at the slaughterhouse these days, there's almost no butcher shop left in the United States where you can just buy like a pint of cow's blood or whatever.
Yep.
The blood never makes it this far. The slaughterhouse collects the blood from the killing floor, and parts of it get used for pharmaceuticals, parts of the blood get used for animal feed or plant fertilizer, and in some cultures, people eat the blood, though rarely here in the States, which is why if I want to show you some blood, I have to draw my own. Got to sterilize my skin, and hey, that ought to do it. Grab a medical grade lens.
Just love it. I mean, when I said when he goes above and beyond, like, yes, look at it. The dude's just gonna prick his own finger and make himself bleed all for the views, as they say.
Set, and here we should get some actual blood. The reason blood is so thick and red is because it's only about half water. Blood is almost half red blood cells, which are relatively big, solid things. Actually, the particular shape of blood cells makes it so that blood is very thick only when it is still. When you kind of swirl the blood around or move it around in some way, it thins out.
Blood, Adam.
The red blood cells are very susceptible to shearing forces, and so still blood is thick, moving blood is thin. And of course, it starts to set up solid as soon as it touches air, thanks to the platelets that make your blood clot to close wounds. When you cook blood, as in this pre-cooked English-style blood sausage, the blood sets up really firm into something like a cake.
Have you ever had this? I've only had it once, and I was not a fan. However, I understand the draw if people like this. You do you, like I always say. But let me know in the comments, have you ever had a blood sausage or blood anything related to cooking with the blood?
In fact, blood has albumin in it, the same protein in eggs that coagulates at relatively gentle heat and that helps to hold your cake together. The same protein is in blood. And that makes blood an excellent thickener for soups and stews and such. You just stir a little bit of it into a simmering liquid, like a starch slurry. They do that in France. This is a bowl of tofu and duck's blood soup filmed somewhere in East Asia, where eating blood is generally not considered taboo. But it is taboo elsewhere, most notably in Abraham.
What's more taboo is that tofu. Ugh. I'm just kidding.
Abrahamic religious traditions like Islam. Nobody knows where the blood-eating taboo came from, historically at least, but in the meat industry they refer to blood as liquid meat because it's nutritionally so similar to meat, and it's just as safe to eat as long as you cook it. I mean, if you ate a whole lot of blood, you could potentially get iron poisoning, and that's one theory as to where the blood taboo came from. Another hypothesis is that it might have had to do with pagan animal sacrifice sacrifice, which was associated with blood drinking. Regardless, a lot of people in this world regard blood eating
What all have you learned so far? Because this just keeps going for me.
with some amount of disgust. And that's one reason why it matters that the purge collected in this vacuum-packed beef is not blood, even though it is very dark red. Beef has more of the particular protein that tints meat juice red or pink or purple, and that protein is myoglobin.
Yes.
Meat juice is mostly water with a little myoglobin mixed in. Now, I've said that on the internet before in a TikTok video that I made a long time ago, and apparently the audio from that video has gone kind of viral. People dub it over their own videos of really, really red, juicy, rare steaks that they're cutting up, and that's cool. But people comment on those videos, and one thing that I see them saying is, water with a little myoglobin in it. Isn't that what blood is? No, that is not blood. The protein inside red blood cells that makes them red is hemoglobin. Myoglobin and hemoglobin are chemically similar, though hemoglobin is 4 times the size. They both contain heme, which is the iron complex that binds to oxygen from your lungs. The function of hemoglobin is to carry oxygen from your lungs down to your tissues. The function of myoglobin is to store that oxygen directly inside your muscle tissue, inside the muscle cells. Myoglobin stores oxygen for future use by your muscles. They are similar molecules, but they just aren't the same stuff, and there's normally no myoglobin found in blood. One person on TikTok said, wait a minute, if there's no myoglobin in blood, then why do they search for myoglobin in a standard medical blood test?
See, this is exactly why I looked him up before doing this video. I would have never thought about this, and thankfully he's gone through this because he has that audio that went viral for him. So he's seen the comments, he's seen the questions. You know, these are absolute questions that I never would have answered in my video had I not watched him. So, Adam Ragusea, so much research.
I'm guessing this person maybe worked at a lab or something, and the answer is they look for myoglobin in your blood because it would be an indication of muscle injury, that the fluid from inside your muscle is spilling out into your bloodstream due to some injury or something.
We don't want that.
Indeed, when we injure an animal by slaughtering it for meat, some residual blood probably does spill into that intramuscular water, which in turn leaks out as purge. But there's probably very little blood in there, and if you have a problem with trace blood in the juice, then you've got a problem with meat. There's trace blood in the meat too, and no amount of washing or salting will get it out, though probably there's so little blood that you'd never taste it. The slightly metallic taste of red meat is mostly due to the high myoglobin content, not trace hemoglobin. And cooking doesn't get rid of heme proteins, it just changes their color to brown and gray, as in the case of this medium steak that I made for the kids. We use the same color-changing phenomenon to tell when chicken is cooked all the way through. We say the juices should run clear, which really means the juices should be translucent brown instead of translucent pink. Chicken white meat has very little myoglobin because chickens don't fly very much, so they don't actually...
As someone who is colorblind, I have a really difficult time seeing the color pink, especially really light red. I also have a difficult time making the difference, comparing the differences of like brown and greens and things like that. That's neither here nor there. But I have a tough time, so I always rely on my meat thermometer, is what I'm getting at.
Use this chest muscle. It just doesn't need much oxygen. But even the dark red myoglobin juice from beef does not taste as powerfully metallic as blood does, because there's proportionally way less heme protein in here compared to actual blood. The juice is just mostly water with a little bit of other stuff in it. Like, I think those little white clumps under the microscope are free fats that clumped up in the cold of the fridge, I think. Ultimately, the biggest difference between blood and meat juice, to me, is that they just taste really different. Blood cooks up really thick and has a powerful metallic taste that you know from like cutting your lip and stuff.
All the time.
Meat juice is very, very thin, and it has hardly any metallic taste at all. It mostly just tastes like meat. So there you go. That's why a rare steak is not a bloody steak, or at least it is little more bloody than any other piece of meat. That liquid is juice, and the difference matters.
Well, couldn't have said it better myself. So, tell me in the comments what you learned. Now, if you've watched my channel for a little while, you probably already know that juice is not blood, okay? Because you are a fan of meat and you just know this, right? Like, why would that be blood? Why would we be eating a bloody steak? Like, it just makes sense. It's just common sense, right? So there's just two totally different flavors, as he says. So tell me in the comments what you learned from Adam's video. Have you watched him before? What are some of his other videos that you've learned some things about? You know, go check out his channel. Awesome stuff. Great content. As always, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.